So good morning, everyone. This morning we're dealing with the grief business, the business of grief. And it really is an important topic for women in business because, we are women building a business and we're fragile women with everything that has happened to us in life coming with us when we set up or when we grow a business. We can't really look at grief as an isolated topic that never enters the business world. And in fact, there are some amazing women working with women in particular, helping them deal with grief as they grow a business and navigate their way through life as they set up their business. And we have an amazing presenter with us this morning, Sangeeta Dewen. She's an incredible lady. And before I introduce Sangeeta formally to you, we have a very small, beautiful audience this morning who are going to be sharing their experiences with you as well. So the first person I'm going to go to on screen this morning is Rachel Poulton, who has a very sad story connected with the loss of children as she's been sort of navigating her way to setting up her business. I'm going to go to Rachel first. So over to you, Rachel, if you'd like to share with us what's comfortable for you to share regarding your losses and the whole issue around grief and how it shows up in your life now in your business.
Hi, so I'm Rachel. Hi, Sangeeta. Grief is a very emotive subject for me with burying a 1-year-old and having a stillborn baby. But the after effects of grief affect my life daily still. So I have 2 living children and 2 children who are passed. But the stress of my grief basically blew my brain. So I've got a rare brain condition that affects my memory. It affects everything that I do. I take a lot of medication, and my living children now have to really care for me. They're classed as my young carers because of all the intricacies that were caused by the brain condition from a brother and sister that died that they never ever met. And their life is affected daily, and also my business, because I forget key moments, I forget clients are due because of the brain condition, where my brain it was too much, so it shut down. And now it won't open back up. So I've got to try and navigate around it. And I've got processes down to about 80% effectiveness, but that brain condition still busts in and sabotages me. But on a silver lining, it actually stops me from always ruminating about my grief, because it's too much. It's too much. My brain just says, no, you're not going in. So it's a safety valve for me. And I've got a big anniversary coming up. My daughter would have been 24 now on 17th of April. So, yeah.
It's, massive repercussions, isn't it? It just doesn't happen once and it's over. It's almost always going to be there, and you have to navigate your way around it almost sometimes on a daily basis.
Daily, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Rachel. So over to you, Althea. What is your experience of grief, and how do you manage your way around it?
I can't feel like as if I don't feel grief, but I feel like as if I should feel it. So hi, Sangeeta. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I don't think I don't have a lot of experience with it. I think it's because I don't process it, or I should be doing something. So I don't feel it, but I don't feel like I should be doing something. So my mom died last year. I wasn't close to my mom, so I don't know how that grief translates. But I know a week later, I was sort of all of a sudden starting to miss her. So all the time she was there, I wasn't missing her. Then she died, and I was missing her, which is weird. And then I've lost 2 miscarriages, and I didn't feel a thing. And I just always thought, should I have felt something? But ever so often, I do feel a bit sad about things, and I do feel like, oh, I wish that had not happened. So for me, it's quite weird. I don't feel grief, but I feel like the problem is I should be feeling it.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing, Althea. And coming to you, Karen, because I know you're looking to work within that whole industry of helping other people deal with the whole issue of dealing with loss and dealing with grief. So over to you, Karen. Could you share your experience with us this morning?
Oh gosh, if I started there, we'd be still here tomorrow. I'm basically doing a grief educators course with Dave Kessler, and one of the things he had us do last week was an inventory of our loss, and I'm still working on it because loss encompasses so many different things, and as I sort of dive into it, I'm just realizing how much and in so many different ways I've lost things and grieving to this day. I mean, most recently, my husband passed away at the end of 2022. So it's just one of those things that I live with on a daily basis. I have my ups and downs, but I've given myself permission to take time out and really start healing and start that healing process just right back to the beginning, because I've got so much delayed grief, so much grief that I haven't dealt with, that it's just sitting there. And yeah, it's just, it is what it is, unfortunately. You don't get through life without a loss. You just learn how to live with it.
It's really interesting, Karen, putting together almost like a list of your losses that, gosh, I wonder if as women, sometimes we don't invest the time in almost looking backwards and saying, hang on, perhaps how full is my cup really of grief that I'm just ignoring?
Yeah.
I got so used to ignoring grief. When is this going to bubble up and perhaps even cause an illness in us? What am I suppressing? So yeah, I can really associate with that. Yeah, I've had 5 miscarriages. And I think when you're going through the miscarriages, you're just wanting to fill the hole again with another child. And you don't go through that grieving process really, perhaps as you should. I've lost people, I've lost, family members. And it's one of those things when you're working, I think people are thinking, come on, toughen up, push hard, work through it. There's very few occasions where people say, why don't you take a few days, few weeks off and deal with your grief and heal yourself? Mostly just people want you to be the same, push through, be hard, be tough, keep going. So I'm really excited to introduce to you this morning Sangeeta, who I know is going to share some amazing, her story, first of all, will just sort of blow you away. And her insights, then, it's almost like the cherry on the cake. So welcome, Sangeeta. Can we give Sangeeta a bit of a virtual round of applause? Step up, Sangeeta. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Cheryl. And it's a big topic, and I'm just sending you all virtual hugs. I know Rachel, Atia, and Karen, and Cheryl, you're sharing as well. It's a big topic, and and I really, when Rachel was talking, I could see how her brain just shut down, and it's a natural kind of process, and we just don't know what else to do. And like you were sharing, it's like everybody around us want us to be back on our feet, be normal, do whatever you need to do, kind of thing, to park that on side. Or what we don't realize, that when we are parking grief or any kind of emotion on side, it's going to knock our door, whenever. It's not going to go away. And it's about to be, emotions are supposed to be processed. They are there for a reason. Loss is there for a reason. And I see loss, recently, like, Cheryl, I have gone through many, many challenges in my life. Many times I had to grieve. But the latest one was, of course, losing my husband in end of 2021. And at that point, before that, whenever I had to go through any loss or kind of different aspects of my life, and that point, I first time felt, I'm not a victim. This is happening for a reason. My soul has I have incarnated knowing that I will go through these challenges so I can grow as a soul. And when I grow as a soul, I can hold space for people. I can allow them to grieve in a safe place. I can share what I have learned. I started my spiritual journey in 2009, and I had a lot of anger issue, a lot of resentment. I had a lot of trauma from my childhood. And it was weighing heavy on me. I was thinking, as a parent, I want to be lighthearted, I want to be loved. And I am like very childlike. I used to play with my kids, but every now and then this anger came up, the irritation that my children used to trigger me, and when they're just playing around being kids. I was thinking, wow, why I'm getting so angry? It's not even their fault. They're just being 6 or 8 years old. And I just went into this shame. I was thinking, what kind of mother I am, that I cannot even just take that little triggers and process that. What's in me that is weighing down me? And I started that spiritual journey, and I realized that there was a lot of pain that I didn't process. There was a lot of things that happened to me. So I'll share with you a little bit. Like when I was 2 years old, I had polio. And me, I didn't even know what it was. But I was growing up. I knew that I couldn't walk normal like other kids. I had a caliper, iron caliper. I have to wear that as a support. Growing up in India as a girl, where everybody wants you to be perfect. I mean, women are always looked at like how beautiful you look, how perfect you are. And like till 5, 6 years old, I didn't realize I could see, okay, there was a difficulty for me in walking. And I realized when I went to my first school that I couldn't even sit like my, other friends. I have to have a chair where I have to put my legs straight. And then I was seeing them running around and cheering and dancing. And I was sitting there in the corner thinking, why can't I do that? I really want to do that. And then kids can be quite nasty at that age. So they were like bullying me and laughing at me, haha, kind of thing. And I was like, there was this girl who just wanted to enjoy her life, be cheerful and like everything. And everything around me was telling me, you cannot do what you want to do. And so even if I used to come home and talk to my mom, my parents were wonderful, but they never had time to sit down and process emotions because they didn't know how to, you know. And I saw as I was growing older, I saw there's so much pain in my mother's eyes, looking at me, thinking, "Oh my God, you poor child, you're disabled, you can't do this and that." And she was trying to make me feel happy with giving me things or buying me more clothes and things like that, but nothing was working because my emotions. I had so many questions: why I'm different, why can't I be like normal kids? And then I just got used to it. But the desire in me to just dance and walk and thing was so strong. I think I just shook God and saying, no, I want to do this. And over time, my doctors started to see a difference in me, and they were saying, oh my God, she can walk a bit more normally. And then my caliper went down to a shoe which was little higher. And then I said, no, I don't want to even wear that. I want to wear normal sandals, normal shoes. And then I could walk like that with that. And he was saying, it's like, I was the only child in that hospital with thousands of kids who had polio, that I could walk normally, that they just couldn't do any more with me. They said, no, just go. And I thought, wow, okay. So that was a little bit of cheerful time for me. And then I grew older, but my belief was poor me. That was given to me by other people with the bullying issue and everything else. So I started to feel poor me, like a victim. I'm a victim. Something has happened to me, which doesn't happen normally to other kids. And then I grew older, I was trying to be like this jovial person. And then there was a family member, I went through little abuse, kind of, not little, it was a huge thing. It was long period of abuse. And that was, again, heartbreaking. And I couldn't tell anybody because I thought, my mom don't trust me. She will always point fingers at me. So I remember processing that pain, unknowing to me that I'm doing that. At night time, I used to just cry. And I remember waking up in the morning sometimes and my pillow was wet because whole night I spent crying. And my mom didn't even have time to see that I haven't slept or anything like that. She'd say, all right, get up, get ready, go to school, go to college, whatever. And I felt since I was very young that I'm alone. I'm on my own. No matter what happens to me, I had to deal with it on my own. But there was this innate knowingness that I have to process this emotion, you know. But when I, of course, got married and came to UK, I had a lovely, lovely husband. He gave me this freedom to be me, and I could share things with him. And then I shared with him when I was going through, with my kids thing. And I was like, I'm really struggling. I just come up with so much of pain. I feel like I'm a victim. I feel I'm like a bad mom. And he said, what are you talking about? You're such a loving, caring mom. I have never seen her. He said, I wish I had that kind of mom who was so caring and loving. So what if you get triggered once in a while? So what? Don't try to put too much pressure to be perfect. And I was like, yeah, actually, I do put a lot of pressure. Then I shared with him all my stories of grief, of, polio abuse and all that. And he said, I think, Mrs., you should get some counseling done for you. You have a lot of trauma packed in and that you haven't processed because you were never allowed, and you didn't know that you have to process that. You just took it on. And I thought, okay, interesting. I thought, no, but we don't have enough money. Counseling was very expensive. We don't have enough money. I always found an excuse not to look after me. And then in 2009, when I hit rock bottom, I went into depression and I just wanted to give up my life. I was like, I cannot take any more pain. I am like full, and then I remember watching TV, switching on TV, and I said, God, just find a way for me, because my kids are 8 and 10 at that time. I cannot leave them. I don't have, yes, I was hurt. Yes, my life was difficult, but how can I leave my children? Please find a way. And there was a teacher talking about, she said, when any kind of challenge comes in our way, it's like imagine there's a huge rock in front of you and you just trying to bang your head to the rock and saying, why don't you move? Why don't you move? Why is my life stuck? Why I am going through grief? Why I am going through all of that? And nothing moves because we feel we are small. We are a victim. We are small. This problem, the challenge is huge in front of us. And I remember her saying that, and the minute that is presented to you, it's like divine is saying to you, don't bang your head towards that rock. Become like water. Become flexible. Something in you need to change so you can pass that challenge. See, in water, nothing can stop water. No matter what the rock is, how big or small, says water will flow. Water will make a way. And I just it really shook me. I was thinking, my God, all my life, I thought, I'm a victim, there's a problem and I feel stuck and there's a lot of trauma and all that. So how do I work on myself to change my mindset, to become flexible? I don't know where to even start. So I kept on just somehow when my heart was breaking, I somehow was connecting to divine in such a powerful way. I said, okay, I understood that. I need to change. Something needs to change in me. It's not the people. It's not the challenges. Where do I begin? Show me a way. And it was like magic. I came across a teacher on YouTube. I went and did personal development courses from her. And from there, I did Reiki healing to heal my heart and all of that. And it's just when I am so deeply connected with me and with my pain, the door is open, saying, okay, go through that door and you'll find some answers. Then you embody that. And then until now, that's what's happening. But what happened when my husband was diagnosed, he was well, we were having fun and all that. And suddenly he was diagnosed with brain tumor and he was given less than 6 months to live. Now imagine all of that pain and trauma I have gone through. And I just said to God, it's like, that's enough. That's too much for me. How do you want me to handle this? So I said, and again, it's like I had 2 boys who are 20 and 22. How do I handle them? How do I look after my husband? What do I do? And again, that's what I did. I said, okay, God, I give it to you. You guide me, and just give me enough strength that I can go through this with courage, with such solidness, and, that I can look after my husband and I can take care of my children. And I'd start praying, and I was just walking in a green space. My husband was in operation theater. I think it was 10 hours operation. And I just went so quiet. I went within me and I said, okay, divine, just guide me. And I heard this voice saying, don't forget who you are. Don't forget your journey. I was like, oh my God, it is all about everything I learned till now. That's going to come handy. And I said, okay. He said, just connect with yourself. And I was like, how can I do this? So much going on around me. Everything is falling apart. How do I connect to me? And so I said, okay, I'm going to make sure I wake up half an hour before my husband wakes up. And I just sat in my meditation. I created my inner peace meditation. And I just prayed to God. I said, okay, I just need energy and courage and strength for 24 hours. So I can take care of my kids, take care of my husband without falling apart. Because if I fall apart, everything is going to fall apart. There's nobody else to hold that space. So I said, you need to give me that strength. And just to process what's going on, just to have this energy. And I think suddenly I became this rock, who can hold everybody's space, who can go through all of that. Because our 24 hours were like anything could happen anytime. I might have to rush him to a hospital. I might have to call ambulance, or it might be a very simple day, where we don't even realize that something has happened. So that's where I found strength and everything. But the one thing I really felt that changed who I am and the way I took all of this on is when he was diagnosed, I felt there was two options in front of me. Either I can ignore and run away from it and shut down and saying, okay, this is not happening to me. This is not real. Something will change, something will happen, or I could accept it. And the minute I accepted that, after an hour or two of knowing, I said, all right, this is the challenge. Now what? And the minute I accepted, I felt again there was a door that opened and saying, okay, like when you go to game shows and say challenge accepted, and then they say, okay, now what? Then the tools and the techniques and the visions and the things that I started to embody that helped me to go through that journey. And, it was not just my husband, my children were falling apart. One was having panic attacks. One was just going through really like a mild depression. And I had to navigate all of that. And, I'm so proud of it that I did. But I think the thing I felt is if we don't accept what's happening in front of it, no matter how little or how big it is, it's like we have closed that door. Like when I was hearing to all of you, it's like, I can't deal with it because nobody has taught us to deal with any emotions. We always tell people to get over it, be quick, be normal. Like for instance, for Rachel's kids, she has other kids to look after. She has a business to look after for all of us in our jobs and our things. And yes, we have to live for the people around us. But hey, we are human beings. It is our duty to ourselves to feel that emotion. And what I learned, one thing is we have to feel it to heal it. And that was so profound for me that, I cannot run away from it. I cannot park my emotions. I have to on a daily basis feel them no matter how hard it was. And the minute I used to go into my pain, that used to become my power. And saying, okay, I have enough strength for 24 hours. I'm not thinking long and hard enough for after 6 months, what's going to happen to me? What's the financial thing? I mean, my kids were worried about like, do we have to sell the house? Mom, what is going to happen to you? And I sat both of them down. I said, boys, I appreciate your concern. You're worried. I said, please just have trust in me. Just have faith in me that I will make sure that I am okay and I'll make sure that you're okay. But for now, I just need to focus on dad. I just need to make sure that you are okay and that I am okay, you know. And I think that gave them strength every time. And I said, every time you're concerned, every time you're worried, come and talk to me. Do not go to sleep anxious. Do not go to sleep stressed. I mean, that was normal. It became a normal daily part of our life, panic and anxiety and stress. But I was trying my best to hold their space. But when I look back, I was thinking, okay, those 12 years of journey, spiritual journey of me evolving as a soul, me learning those tools, me learning to meditate, calming my mind, everything I had to use. And now when I look back, it's only 2.5 years old. And yes, I break down, and I feel the pain, but I am in such a good place because I remember having this chat with my husband and he said to me, Mrs., promise me that you'll live a good life. And I said, I do. I will promise you. I do promise that I will. I said, I don't know how long will it take for me to process this grief and to hold my children's space, but I promise you I'm going to live my best life and I'll help others. And because I realize that living, people, yes, our loved one, when they pass away, we feel part of us is gone with them, but we can still become whole. We are whole. It's just about processing those emotions, accepting that has happened, that can allow us to feel that. That really helps us to say, okay, I'm still here. I'm alive. I want to live. I want to do joyful things. And yeah, certain days I might not be able to get up from the bed. And that's the day I am processing sadness and this grief and sadness because I loved him, and he went very early. He was only 56 when he passed away, and I felt more sadness for him that he wouldn't see kids growing up and missing all of that. But it's a huge part of my life, thinking I have gone through a lot of challenges, lot of losses, loss of my own self-esteem, loss of my confidence, loss of people, loss of job, loss of my dear husband. But I know every time I went through it, because I accepted that challenge. Before I didn't know that. This time I knew what I'm going to face, and I'm going to face it with courage. I think it gave me a lot of strength to come out of it. And now I'm here, and I would love to support people to just process that grief so you can live your best life, because we all deserve it. Our kids deserve it. My kids deserve my mom, me to be that joyful being, confident being, and still knowing that, yeah, some days mom does feel like that. Even when we are watching TV, sometimes something comes up with cancer or tumor, it triggers me, and my kids, they just look at me saying, what can I do? I said, just hug, just a touch. That's more than enough to say that you're there for me. You're feeling the pain that I'm feeling because we have gone through it together. And just allow me to cry. Allow me. It might take me 2 minutes. It might take me half an hour. I might have to switch off TV and go upstairs. Whatever happens, just allow me to be really present with my pain, because the more I'm present with my pain, easier it's going to pass through me. The more I shut that down, the more it's going to trouble me, in physical ailment and things like that. So I'm here, and I hope I can connect with all of you. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, do ask.
We open it up for questions. So who would like to ask the first questions? I'm particularly interested in, what happens almost like internally if we ignore, say for example, you might have had a miscarriage and then you move on, you have another miscarriage, and then other things happen. What happens almost like to that grief that we didn't work through? How does that in some ways, is it almost like backed up, like as though it's your bowel, it's in backup, and at some stage it's got to come out? I know it's not nice related it to a bowel, but you know what I mean, it's sort of backed up. So Sangeeta, how do we process that, if there is backup in the system? And I'd love you to all think about your questions as well, whilst Sangeeta's answering this. So over to you, Sangeeta.
You know, it's a great question, because what happens is when we lost someone, you know, like your question with miscarriage, there's a void that is created within us. And that void we try to fill up quickly, either with, you know, trying for another child, or going for a shopping, or trying to really bury our head in something like work wise, or busy ourselves, or sometimes what I have noticed, that was my pattern. I try to look after somebody else. I'm just doing everything to ignore that void that has been created. And when we ignore that void, it's going to fill up. There's a universal law: whatever void is created, it's going to fill up. It's going to fill up with something else. Rather than self-love, rather than loving yourself. And I was listening to Marissa that day, and she was saying feelings that can't find its expression in tears may cause other organs to weep. And that's exactly it happens. Some people start to, you know, we might not even notice for years that something is changing in our body. You know, fundamentally something is shifted, something is changed. But it's about acknowledging that there was a void, there's a huge loss. How do I process? And there is not one way you can do it. Is just sit with it. You know, if you take to time, if you want to take time out, and that's why I really wanted to maybe talk to business women, talk to people, and saying, hey, take time, no matter how long does it take. Because when you take time for yourself, when you're going to come back, you're going to come back a new version of yourself. You're going to come back more powerful than ever before. Why? Because you have processed that grief, you have processed that pain, and that has opened some other dimension of you that you didn't even know that existed. And that's how I felt. Every time I cry, every time I process, I feel something in my energy body shifted. I feel more aligned, I feel more energized, I feel more open. And like I said, I was doing that since I was 2 years old child. So maybe there was a soul knowingness in me, but I couldn't put words to it. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, a lot of people were asking, you go through challenges and still after a few months or a year, you look normal, you feel. And I said, do you know how much I cried? What people didn't know, that I took 6 months out of that 3 months, I didn't know what I was eating or not. I was just sitting with my pain. And I said, Sangeeta, this is your time. Nobody is going to disturb you, because I had stopped taking phone calls and anything, because I wanted to fill that void with my love. I was asking me questions that I have never asked me before. Sangeeta, what would you like to eat? What can I do for you that you feel love? And my love always had been listening to lovely music, Bollywood music. I would put music on and bring the smile on my face. Or sometimes I listen to sad music so I can cry more and I can let the emotions out of my body. I didn't want that pain to stay stuck in my body. And I think that's why I felt lighter every time I process any kind of thing. So for my thing is, when there's a void is created, do not try to fill it quickly with anything external. Go within, sit with you, process that, and it will be your own process. You will find a way, because my way of loving myself is very different to the way you will love yourself, Cheryl. So don't look outside. Yes, we need people, we need support from outside, but just ask yourself, connect to yourself and saying, what can I do? How can I process this grief so I can keep living my best life? You know, I hope that helps.
Yeah. Do we have somebody else who'd like to ask a question? Rachel?
Rachel, you're muted, darling. Can you unmute?
I'll unmute Rachel.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So this is a tricky one, because I don't want to get over it. I feel it's a betrayal to my children if I forget them, if I don't celebrate where they would be now in their life. I could be a grandmother, and I don't want to harp on things. I don't want to do that. But one mother wants to forget that their child existed, you know, and forget the grief. So I celebrate their life, and my daughter especially, what she gave back in her death. But as a separate section, but I don't want to get over it. I'm a mum of 4, not a mum of 2, and I do put practices in place to deal with it. That's why the brain damage and stuff. But I feel it's a betrayal because I've got 2 living children who take all my time and attention. If my children were here, they would have me 24/7. So I just feel it's weird that I'm not letting it be a victim mode kind of thing, but I don't want to forget my children. I don't want to get over it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense perfectly. But the thing is, just watch your language. Nobody asked you to forget your children.
All right.
There is no betrayal. You're going to honor them. See, the thing is, what happens is when we lose someone dear to us, they go in a spirit world. I'm little spiritual knowledge, and they want you to live your best life. There was a soul contract with you, with that child, that I will come and I will go. And yet it's not about forgetting them. You are honoring them, you're celebrating them. That's the beauty of it. But yet that grief, because that void is still there, the grief you haven't processed, that's not allowing you to celebrate who you are, who your other children are who are living. So it's processing grief is not about forgetting. Who will forget your child? Nobody. I don't want to forget my husband. I celebrate him in so many different ways. On his birthday, I do certain things. On his death anniversary, I do certain things. Sometimes I think of him like, oh, Mahesh would love to eat that. How about I try making that? I'm celebrating him, yet I'm not forgetting that I am still here, that my 2 children still need me, and they need the best version of their mom. So it's about healing enough that you can live your best life, that you can give your best to the children who are living. Like you said earlier, Rachel, that they have to take care of you. So they have become your carer because you maybe didn't know how to process grief. And maybe the words you're using is thinking, if I process that emotion, that means I'm forgetting my children. No. They are always going to be part of you. They're always going to be in your heart. It's about, do you owe yourself the best life? Do you owe your 2 children the best life? It's impacting your life in a way that you cannot function the way you wanted to function. That those children are robbed away of the mother who can provide for them. Do you want that? And I don't think your children would have wanted that either. So it's sometimes about listening to your heart and saying, okay, I want to really remember my children. How can I celebrate them? But how can I celebrate me as well? Because it was nobody else's fault. When we lose people, when we have miscarriages or whatever, nobody intend to, but there are sometimes there's soul contracts we all choose before we come incarnate in this body and saying, okay, we are going to go through that challenge and we are going to grow as a soul. We will have a different understanding of the universe. We'll have a different understanding of us. So I would really suggest you looking into grief and saying, how can I grieve them properly so I can celebrate them properly? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I definitely are there unconditionally for my children now, and I just take a time out on their anniversary or birthday and then revisit it, and then I have to move on, kind of thing. But no, my kids are like, you're a good mum, you've just got some limitations, but they're not lacking in love or attention or anything like that.
And I totally agree that it's not the love, it's your restriction for yourself. And I say to everybody, you deserve whole you.
Yeah. I won't get that back though with the damage that was done to my brain.
You don't know. And Cheryl and me were talking. I have done a hypnotherapy, Marissa Pierce hypnotherapy. And if you're open to it, we can try hypnotherapy sessions and see what happens, because I can take you back and we can process the grief.
Okay. Yeah.
But thank you so much. And I hope, I have a lot of love in my heart, and I want to make sure that you process things properly. And hope you felt that.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Althea, did you have a question, or Karen, do you have a question?
It's not so much a question, just a sort of suppose something I noticed, it's just that you are such an incredible person, Sangeeta, and we both, Cheryl and I, felt it in Kettering. And to be able to come on here and just even show up authentically and show that you're still grieving and that it's okay, and giving yourself permission to heal. And it is that giving yourself permission that is just so important, because we're most of the time expected just to carry on. But it's not that easy. And you have to give yourself permission to take that time out to heal, to grieve, cry, to laugh, to process every single emotion that comes in there. And as you say, it's a bit like being constipated. If you store everything up, it's going to be really horrible trying to get it back out again.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I felt that love when we met first as well. And it's so important. And Cheryl, like, when we ignore our feelings, there is something else happen. There's a block that's created within us, whether it's in our mind, mental body, energy, emotional body, and everything else. And what we forget is we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's all about, and we as mothers, all of us, we try to do a lot of things for everybody, and I remember reading this quote that we are not human doings, we are human beings. And that really touched me. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm doing everything for my child. But if I'm being miserable, then they are going to pick up that energy. If I'm being irritated, then they're going to pick up my energy. So my thing was, how can I do everything for them, but be happy, be at peace, and that is important. And sometimes I'm not doing anything for them, but I'm just being peaceful. I'm saying, hey, boys, some days I need to be with me, because being with me is, one, I'm honoring myself. Second, I'm teaching them how they can be there for themselves. It's not always about looking from outside validation or outside love. It's about you being there for you is more than enough. You be connecting to you, to the divine, is more than enough. And yet, when we are there for ourselves, so many people show up, so much love show up, because we take time to love ourselves, So it's really important not to ignore our feelings. And I understand why we ignore our feelings, because sometimes it's uncomfortable. They are very, very uncomfortable. Who wants to feel the pain? None of us want to feel the pain. But I feel when the pain is there, it's like divine has given you a gift wrapped in pain. So as you unwrap that pain, there's a gift in it. And I felt physically every time I feel the pain, the energy shift, and divine says, hey, there's a new present, there's a new understanding, there's a new gift. But it's about going within ourselves is difficult. So sometimes that's why we need counselors, we healers, we need, hypnotherapist or a friend sometimes. So we need other support who can teach us how to connect or reconnect with yourself, so you can, process those emotions. So, and I cannot reiterate enough, it is so important to feel, to heal it.
I'd like to ask a question, Sangeeta, around the other things that then happened. So I almost see with some people, it's almost like a trail of events that happen. So say, for example, it's unprocessed grief. But then, and really when it's unprocessed, it is somebody saying to themselves, I'm not taking care of you. Because if you were taking care of yourself, you would be processing the grief. But when we're not processing the grief and we're not taking care of ourselves, I see people then perhaps carry too much weight because they're not looking after themselves, they're not exercising how they should. And then that weight gain then causes, it could actually bring on board diabetes or cholesterol. And then what happens when they go to the doctors give them tablets for high cholesterol as opposed to going back to
the root cause.
What is causing this has created a whole trail of things to happen. And and the corn, in some cases never gets recognized. And what gets recognized is almost like the aftermath of it, the cholesterol or the depression or the whatever, as opposed to going to cause. So I love it that you actually go into the divine, go into your core, and in that seat, you know, deal with it, you know.
Yeah, it is
Deal
important.
with it.
Yeah, I think it is so, so important. And I have realized that, weight is always not about physical weight, it's emotional weight that we are carrying, is the burden that we are carrying. And I remember talking to my husband because he was overweight, he had diabetes, he has high blood pressure, and all of that. And it was like I used to say to him, I said, just talk to me, open up your emotion. And he had a very difficult childhood, yet he was the most happy, joyful person. If he walked in the room, he was the center of the attention of the party. He was joyful, he was making jokes, he was looking after everybody. But I used to feel, even when I didn't know the energy and how, it's like there is so much in there that hidden in you, you're holding on to so much. Why don't you share? And luckily, when that was one biggest blessing, when he was with me for like 14 months, he survived. He was given less than 6 months, and we had this chat one day, and I said, why weren't you opening up emotionally to me? Because I was feeling that disconnect, yet you loved me. And he said, I didn't know how to talk about the emotions, nobody has ever showed me. And then he shared everything about his childhood, and I was thinking, wow, Mahesh, that's what it was underneath all of that. That whatever happened, he parked. He went out to a pub, have a drink, go out with the mates, feel that life is all joyful. And he said, I never know how to feel pain. Nobody has taught me. Everybody liked me when I was happy. Nobody liked being around people who cry or who are down. I was like, wow, that's how we are bringing up our men as well. That, you shouldn't be emotional, you shouldn't be vulnerable. And, I have 2 boys, and I teach them since they were very, very young. And I said, boys, I used to talk to them. I still do when they come back now. They are grown up adults. And I said, look, what's going on? Just share what's going on. And the minute they used to share what's going on, even when they're irritated with me, it's like, Mom, I didn't like the way you spoke to me. I was like, tell me. And I saw whenever they used to share the energy shift, their facial expression, they become very soft rather than, I'm holding anger or I'm holding that. I said, just let it be. Don't hold that in you. It's going to harm you. There's no need. Somebody came and did something wrong to you and you're holding in, and that's harming you. And that person is having a great life. So process emotions. So they are now good at talking about their emotions, what they're feeling, anger, anxiety, and thing. And other things, Cheryl, that came to me when you said, when we hold on to grief or anger, guess what we are creating? Our emotions are the one ingredients that we create life force with. Whatever we are attracting. So if we are more in grief, guess what we are going to attract? More grief. If we are in joy, we are going to create more joy. So whatever energy we sit in emotionally, whether we have dealt with or not dealt with, that's going to ripple effect and attract more of those situations. And that's one of the things I coach people, go right in their subconscious and saying, okay, what is sitting in there that you're creating? Because consciously, we all want to create good life. We all want to live longer. We all want to be healthy. We all want to have loving relationships. But why is that few of us cannot just get to the root cause of it? Because there's a subconscious child who had made a decision, 5-year child made a decision saying, oh, I'm not worth having love, I'm not worth having money, I'm not this and that. And yeah, there was a reason for that child to make that decision. But now we are older, and I always say, healing myself is my gift to myself. That's my duty. Yes, somebody else might have wounded me, but it's my duty to heal myself. It's my duty to say to me, I want to live the best life ever.
Althea, before we take in everyone's feedback, was there a question you'd like to ask?
No, I didn't have a question. I just had an observation. Just 2 things. Sangeeta, you said something about, your grief and how it attracts more, not grief, but whatever problems you have, it attracts more. I feel, I don't know if you know, there's a lot of study that's been done with how having trauma, and trauma is related to physical conditions. A lot of physical conditions happen because of unprocessed trauma or unprocessed grief or anything like that. I just wanted to make that as a comment. So it's amazing how if we feel in some way, it can cause us to get cancer, it can cause us to get sickness, it can mess with our blood sugar levels, it can mess with our hormone levels and cause even more sort of actual physical issues in our body. So that's quite interesting. I just wanted to point out, Rachel was talking about um, she didn't want to forget her children. And I have to say, I didn't get the feeling that you hadn't dealt with your grief. I get the feeling that you had dealt with it and you had your positive strategies in place to help you go through it. That's what I got. I didn't get the feeling that you hadn't dealt with it and that you'd forget it or you're forgetting it. I didn't get that. I felt you to me, you had gone through it, but I'm not a psychiatrist. It felt like you had gone through it, you had dealt with your grief, and I think you had put strategy in place to help you cope with it because apparently it still comes back sometimes and we still have to find ways to deal with it. I think, kudos to you on that, in my opinion.
And my heart is so warm for you, Althea, because I've known you so many years. And I think it's a true demonstration when women show up in Iron Woman, it's not always for people to take for themselves, but to give to their fellow members. The fact that Rachel can feel heard by you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Heard
yeah.
by you. And being able to give her such amazing feed. My body has just gone shivered all the way down. And
I felt warm feeling as well.
that's what
Yeah.
Iron Woman Hour is all about. We can turn up and we can feel truly heard and our pain validated, and people sit with us and just support us. I just want to reach out and give you a hug, Althea.
And I like Sangeeta's comment about watch the language.
Yeah.
I think that stayed with me, Sangeeta. I think that's very powerful. Watch the language. I know the Bible says there's power and life in the tongue. So I quite like that. I felt like Rachel had overcome, but the language was still there. And I felt like you were right by saying, just drop that language because you have overcome. It's
Yeah.
just the language that's just stayed with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
no, it is powerful, and thank you for sharing that. The trauma, physical trauma, what my study has done, and there's a lot of doctors who are talking about that, is the trauma in physical comes later on if emotions are not processed. So it's always emotional trauma first. So if the emotional trauma is not processed properly, then it comes in your physical body. And when the pain, it's like when the pain is so heavy that it comes in physical, now we pay attention to it because we are not aware of our emotional body and mental body. So they are very subtle bodies that we all have, but because we are so focused physically, when it comes as a physical pain, then we go to a doctor. But there's always a root cause in an emotional body. So when we go into that and we release that, the physical ailment can be released as well.
So Rachel, what's your light bulb of learning from this morning?
We can't hear you.
Unmute. Hi. So we're not doings, we're beings. And I do start being instead of doing, but I self-sabotage like I've had with Cheryl. I just always sabotage myself because I don't know, with my weight, with my appearance. So yeah, that needs looking at.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Wonderful. And Karen, over to you, your light bulb of learning from this morning.
I think for me, it's just seeing where Sangeeta is at the moment in her life, how far she's come with processing her own grief, how she honours those around her. And it just gives me hope because she's kind of a year ahead of me in processing her grief. And it gives me hope about where I can be this time next year.
That's wonderful.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the big thing that you said for me, Sangeeta, is remembering we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yeah. And just to spend more time with ourselves in spirit, really, and indulging ourselves and really taking care of ourselves in that context, because I think it's something we forget in our very busy lives. So we've come to 12 o'clock noon, ladies. So I just want to thank Sangeeta from the bottom of my heart. It's been an amazing morning spent with you for an hour. So round of applause for Sangeeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for so much love. And thank you, Lynn, as well. She's a really important subject that a lot of people find so difficult to talk about. Yes, and that's why I'm finding my strength to say somebody needs to talk about and hold space for people who find it hard.
You. And I'm sure we see Sangeeta again soon in our live meetings and in our regular Iron Woman Hour meetings on a Monday. So thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead. And
Thank you.
bye now. Have a great Monday.